Welcome to LG Hockey Hotline. I'm V High with Miranaconda. No Goose Chuck this week. He's got some family stuff going on, so he may or may not jump on, but I don't think he's going to be here. Well, welcome, boys. It's another Saturday night. Here we are at the end of week 3. Been a busy week. We've seen teams like the Ducks and the Blackhawks stay strong, staying at the top of the league, and we've seen a couple other teams. The Islanders fell 4 places in their division, going 2-7 this week. A lot of movement going around. But first off, Anaconda, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Just working on this new setup I got going here. Just ready to talk about week 3 in the LGHL. It was an interesting week as Buffalo's starting to climb the standings there over in the Eastern Conference. There's a lot of teams that are, a lot of teams going up and down the standings right now, and it's very fun to watch, as we get going here and get into the thick of the season. It's fun. We're having a blast here. I just want to kind of throw one little house cleaning thing out this week. Basically, I just want to, remind everybody that, we all have personal lives and everything outside of this. And I just would like to ask everyone to respect that, respect people's privacy, and just kind of treat each other with respect, man. That's all I ask. I mean, it's one thing to be ribbing people and, talking smack, and saying, hey, we're going to kick your ass tomorrow or whatever, that's all. Well, that's good. That's healthy. That's good stuff. But, there's some odd stuff going on here recently. And I just want to remind everybody to kind of respect everyone's privacy and treat each other as human beings here. We're all, we don't see each other. We just hear each other. We talk to each other on the headsets. Just kind of respect each other, man. It's kind of, that's all I really had for this week. This week's house cleaning is just to kind of treat each other with respect here and understand that, it is a person on the other end of that headset. It's not just some, nothing. It is a person over there. So let's try and treat each other with some respect here as we move forward through the league. But week 3, some surprises in the league this week. A whole ton more trades made at the crack of the opening of trades on Thursday night. And
was it like 1 minute after the games ended?
It always as soon as the games end and trades open up, there's teams waiting and ready to make those trades and make those tweaks to their team. And we've seen a couple of teams make some trades and they're starting to climb up the standings. We've seen some other teams that have made a bunch of trades and they're starting to drop down the standings. So, it's all, how much do you really want to mess with your team? If you're sitting in a good spot, you might want to leave it alone a little bit and not change too much. But, it is what it is. Guys are always going to be trading and making moves. And, there's always going to be players on the move.
Yeah. And speaking of trades, last week we talked about a couple of big trades, not the least of which being the trade involving Dallas and New Jersey with Theos and Jonesy, and I guess Jonesy's has been removed from the league. So interesting to see what's going to happen with that. Even without Theos this week, though, Dallas continued their climb. They're now sitting in second place spot in the Western Central Division. They were sitting down in 6th 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how it was a rough first week, but they'll be right there fighting. And basically it looks like them and Minnesota flip-flop positions at this point, and that's a really tight division. They're all, that whole division, even Colorado, they ended the week on a 6-game win streak to get back into contention, and they're at 22 points. So 20 points separate the top of the division from the bottom, but it's actually 12 points that separate the 6 teams not in first place from each other. So seeing a lot of movement there, seeing some teams start to get back up there. I mentioned the Islanders falling down just a little bit, having a really rough week this week. Detroit has fallen down to 5th in their division. Tampa has given up the lead in the East Atlantic Division to the Boston Bruins, who ended the week on a 7-game win streak. So a lot of movement going on. It's been really fun to watch. And, we're going to highlight the Western Pacific Division today, where the league's top team currently through 3 weeks, the Anaheim Ducks, sit atop the mountain. And, the next two places for the playoffs in the division, not including the wild card, have gotten to be a fairly tight race here. And there were a lot of division games this week, and really not much was settled. Everything remained tight. So we'll get into that a little bit in just a minute here, probably in the next few minutes. And I think with you mentioning the trades and all the things that have happened, we're starting to see teams who uh, they're not moving as many pieces. They're moving. There's still a decent amount of trades, but we're not seeing as many 5 and 6 piece trades as we were seeing. And what that tells me is that teams are starting to fill out their rosters, are starting to believe that the roster, the core group of guys that they have, are going to be the guys that are going to take them where they want. And they're just trying to fit in the last couple of pieces around them. So I'm sure we're going to get still a good amount of movement leading into the Week 7 trade deadline. That's just 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah, there's always going to be movement. We've had 26 trades. I just counted them since Thursday night. So in the last 48 hours, we have had 26 trades, which comes in at just about half a trade an hour. So, trades are still getting moved. At this point in time, it seems like it's a little bit of the it's more fine tuning. But at some point, some team will decide that, hey, this isn't working out. We want to get, these guys out of here and try and bring some other guys in. And the one thing that's kind of bizarre to me, and I wasn't sure that, seeing teams that are down towards the bottom trading away their first round draft pick is just like, man, I don't know. A la Arizona last year. I mean, they're trading their first round draft pick 4 weeks into the season when they're sitting at dead last in the league. And that's just, I mean, look what happened. They would have had the first pick overall in the draft, which would have been an absolutely amazing player. And since they traded that pick away 4 weeks into the season, they missed out on that player. And there was really no chance they were going to make the playoffs at that point in time.
Yeah, and what's crazy is last season we knew that guys like PTP, Bone Crusher, Kraz were going to be at the top of the draft, so you were basically giving up one of those players for whatever piece you were getting back. And, it's the same this season. You have guys like JD Hegel and Skills Pay Bills that are going to be in the draft and probably, up there in the top couple of picks, top 3, top 4 picks, depending on how the rest of the guys play out. But there are guys like that if you're trading away your first round pick, you're trading away the chance to get a great player. There last year, we made up 20 points or 19 of the 20 points that we needed to make up on our run at the end of the season. We put ourselves in a hole in the AHL. But in the NHL, it's much tougher to cover that ground. When you're down by 20 points from a playoff spot through 3 weeks in the NHL, or you're down by 15 points, it's much tougher to close that gap with the teams above you because there's not that many teams. You may see 1 or 2 teams fall, but the general core group of guys up at the top of the league will continue to stay up there fighting. A lot of teams don't just fall on their face when you've got the skill level that are filling the rosters on each of these teams. So, it is a head scratcher to trade away your first round pick, especially this early when, even if you're sitting mid pack, 3, 4 bad weeks in a row and you could be right there at the bottom, you don't really want to trade a pick that could possibly be a lottery pick. And we'll see what happens as we move forward, but that is really interesting. And I know the pick does nothing to help you right now, but still, it can help you down the road for sure, especially if it ends up being one of those high picks. And teams like Tampa picks up a first round pick. There's a team like Tampa who's a really good team who could end up having a lottery pick in the draft next season, just like Chicago was able to maneuver for some picks this season. So we'll see how that plays out. It's definitely interesting and scary to trade picks like that.
For sure. I mean, because you never really know. I mean, yeah, you want to keep hope alive that you're going to make the playoffs. We all get that, but at some point, you got to, take a hard look and see what you got and see if it's realistic at that point. And I mean, I guess the thing that I like would look at it is, do you plan on coming back next year or next season? That's the big question when it comes to trading away future assets, because if you're not planning on coming back, then they don't really mean anything to you, which I think is unfortunate. But hopefully, there's a plan in place, and hopefully, things work out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess we can, if you want, unless there's anything house cleaning wise that you need to go back into at all, we can move on to this week's division spotlight.
Absolutely, we can. And this week, we are covering the coveted Western Pacific Division. When it comes down to the Western Conference, though, as we were talking earlier, there really wasn't any movement, I don't think, at all between the teams. There was a lot of interdivisional play this week in the Western Conference. I believe everybody was playing within division with the exception of one game. But, it looks like it's basically exactly the same as it was at week's end of last week. So, there really hasn't been too much movement on the Eastern front. I mean, Colorado has moved up a spot, and they're putting together, looks like they might be salvaging their season over there in Colorado. And that's a great job. I mean, that's, nobody saw that coming with the amount of trades that were getting made, but the last few trades that were made, you could tell that they were good moves. And finally, the ball got rolling over there for Colorado. So I think they're going to be a team to watch out for now in the West, as I think they have things pretty well set, and moving forward, they're going to be a team to reckon with. But we are talking about the West Pacific this week, and we're going to start off with the San Jose Sharks. And the San Jose Sharks have been one of those teams that not a lot of people were talking about having a bad season this season, and I don't think a lot of people really expected them to, but they've come out of the gates and just struggled mightily to pick up W's on a regular basis. And it's interesting to watch. They've made some trades. They've picked up some players. They've got some great players over there, and it's just not happening for them right now, which is kind of shocking. But maybe we could see if they can get it turned around a little bit here, and at least start to get some good games in. But I mean, they got guys that are minus 27, minus 29, minus 21.
Yep.
And that just hurts. That's, they're just not having the luck right now. And they're struggling out of the gates here.
Yeah, for sure. Before I get into talking the Sharks, I did forget to talk about something. I posted a thread about guests on the show throughout this season, and wanted to thank the guys that have contacted me so far. A lot of you have responded in the thread and sent me PMs. We will be getting guys on the show, and the reason that I thought of this, because one of the guys who replied to me was Marcus, the right D for the San Jose Sharks that we're talking about right here, and he's having the best season on their team so far. He's a very solid defenseman, and he said to me, even though the Sharks are struggling, he's got a multi-year deal with them, and he wants to stick it out and try and help this team get better. And they are struggling right now. They've had some pretty bad games as a team. But it's nice to know that they've got a guy like that cares over there and wants to be a part of turning around. And, it looks like they have made a couple of moves this week. They brought in Red Flag 33, who's a center that, was in the AHL last year. As a matter of fact, he was the only guy who shut down J-Claws and gave him his only loss in the AHL last season. He's part of the line that did that. They also brought in Recky and Dixie Tricks 13. So the Sharks made a couple moves. They've got Bielski that they brought up. Dirty tricks. My bad. And they brought up Bielski from the Barracuda to play net for them. So they did make a couple of moves. We'll see if they're able to put anything together, but you're right. They have struggled. And Right now, we're sitting in last place in the entire league. They've only got 13 points on the season. They've got a 5-19-3 record, and they're 4-3-3 in 1-goal games, which is about 500. So they're having some close games there. They've had 10 close games there. There were 1-goal games. They've got 3 losses, 3 overtime losses, and 4 wins. So, they're battling some of those games. But I think what'll tell you the big difference about this team is that they've only scored 70 goals and they have 149 goals against. That's a big struggle for the team to when you are giving up twice as many goals as you're scoring. It's tough to keep up in this league. And, believe me, it is not easy to score or stop pucks in this league, but you can't have that big of a differential. So we'll see if they can get it together. They do have a couple of solid players on their roster, but it's been extremely tough through 27 games.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're sitting at a minus 79 goal differential, which, that's just,
It's the goal differential is higher than the amount of goals they've scored.
yeah. But their win percentage is sitting at 18.5, power play is sitting at 17.3. Their penalty kills sitting at 72.7, which that puts them about midway in the league, maybe down towards the bottom a little bit, but they're just having a rough go at it this season. I don't know if it's their plus minus is a minus 307 as a team, which, I mean, that's crazy. They're just having a rough go at it. They've taken the second most penalties in the league by 1 minute. So at this point, you gotta focus and keep it simple. I think, stay out of the box and just play simple games and grind away and see if you can't, just dig yourself out. When you're sitting at that point, look, we've been there before on a team that we had. It sucks, but you know what? You can't give up. You got to keep grinding away. You got to keep showing up every night, and you got to keep playing, and you got to practice together. And eventually things will start happening. And I do see those guys on practicing a lot. I'm not sure if it's the same 6 guys every time or not, which could be an issue too. But they're having a rough go at it here, and it happens. It's nothing to be. It's a tough game, man. There's a lot of good teams in the NHL. There's a lot of good players. And if you aren't playing good on a nightly basis, you can find yourself digging yourself a seriously deep hole rather quickly.
Yeah. Listen, in all honesty, they're probably all but out of the playoff race. It's probably done. But as a team, you can't think of it like that. As a team, you have to look at it as we've got 9 games this week, and it starts with 2 games Sunday night, and you focus 1 game at a time. Marcus is 4-4-1 for the Sharks. He's got a 500 record, and he's only -6 on the season on this team that has struggled mightily in the plus-minus department. And, he's got 12 points. He's got 3 goals and 9 assists. That's just an example of one of the good players on this team that, even though the team is struggling, he's still doing his job. And guys like that can be contagious if you're on practicing and stuff. So, in all honesty, yeah, they're probably done. We're a third of the way through the season. It's going to be tough to make up that kind of ground in the league. However, crazier things have happened. And, where everybody else right now is doubting the Sharks have any sniff of a hope at the playoffs, all that really matters is that the Sharks believe it and that they start getting on a winning streak starting this week.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I mean, we played them on Wednesday night, and, it was the second game. Now, the score ended up being, looking
7-2.
lopsided. Yeah, I know. The score ended up looking lopsided, but, I'll tell you this right now, they put up a hell of a fight. That game was way closer than it said on the score sheet at the end of the game. It was
They
far
dominated
closer.
the second period.
It was within a goal or two for that entire game until the very end. So, I mean, they're still grinding away. They're still trying. They're maybe out of it. The most likely they're out of it. But you know what? Get yourselves back to 500. That
Have
should be
some
your
fun.
goal. get back to 500. Put the work in, see if you can't
Yeah,
get guys buying in, get back to 500 and grind it out a game at a time from there. But
yeah.
after that, I would say, just keep grinding away. Don't give up and don't quit. And with that, we will move to the next team in line, which is the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, Calgary is, they're only 2 points better than the Sharks right now, so they're struggling too. But they made a move to pick up Goose Chuck a couple weeks ago, who unfortunately isn't here to talk about his team. But I know he was pumped this week because him and his line played against Chicago and were able to come out with a huge, I believe it was a 2-1 victory. Um, and I've seen the Flames play. Their top line is a solid line in the league. The rest of the team, I'm not sure if it's full of bad players or solid players or what they are. They're just not playing well together right now, it would seem. But it's another team that has struggled, though. When you look at um, their goal differential, I think the bigger problem, they've given up 108 goals. But in generalities, that's 20 or so more than most of the other teams in the league. They're struggling putting the puck in the net. They've only scored 58 goals on the season, and I think that's where their toughest part is. So they're a minus 50 on goal differential, and that's where they're struggling. But they're 4-6-3 in one goal games. Another team that's got they have 6 losses and 3 overtime losses in one goal games, and we all know that in those games, one bounce here, one bounce there, and it easily could have gone the other way. So this team, I feel like, really struggled the first couple weeks, but the last couple times I've watched a couple of their games, and they played it. They played a tough game against us to start the week, Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that was another. I think we've won that game, what, 2-1 or something,
2-1.
or maybe.
Uh-huh.
So 2-1. I believe they were winning 1-0 going into the third period.
Yes,
Um,
they were.
they're a competitive team, and they look like they're picking it up a little bit. Again, this is a team that everybody might say is completely out of it, but the way they've been playing, it wouldn't surprise me if you see this team have a 5-4, 6-3, 6-2-1, or 5-3-2 week or something like that. And really, if they have a week that they do that, this team might gain a little bit of confidence and become a scary team. And every time you're beating a team, that means the team that's ahead of you is losing a game because you're beating them. And you never know what can happen, really.
Well, they have one of my favorite players in the league on their team, in Ducks fan Waterloo. I think he's a great player, and of course, Goose. They have a good friend of mine, Robbie, on their team. Robbie's a good guy. He's a good defender. They definitely lack a little bit of top end skill, but and I was talking with Perk before our game on Sunday, and he said, "Hey, take it easy on us," and I was like, "Look, man, you know." Come on, don't ask people to take it easy on you, man. You don't lay down and show your belly before the game even starts, man. You got a good team over there. Just keep grinding it out, man. Keep playing the games, keep showing up and keep playing. And he was worried about his guys losing confidence and feeling bad, and that happens. Trust me, nobody gets it more than us. But it's what you do with being at the bottom that defines you. It's not how you act when you're winning. It's how do you act when you're losing. Can you take it? Can you get back in the game, get your ass off the ground, and get out there and keep fighting? Calgary is, they have some good players on the team. They still definitely lack top end set talent, so I'm not going to say they're scary. They could be scary, but there is a possibility that they could get some stuff going here. They've got a great goaltender in their owner. And Rancher 1 2 3 4 5 is a great goaltender himself. So, they've got good goaltending. They've got some better defenders over there now, and you could see this team slowly starting to be more competitive on a day in and day out basis, and you could see them start to make a little bit of a push here and try and get out of the basement and try and at least get some games going here. Their next week. They are playing the Metropolitan Division, I believe. which is, oh wait, no, it's not the Metro Division. It's the isn't that the wait the one with the Capitals? Is that the Metro in Philadelphia, New Jersey? Yeah, because we just talked
Yes.
about them last week.
Yes.
So yeah, it is the Metropolitan Division. They got some favorable matchups coming up this week. They could rip off 5-6 wins this week coming up. You never know. So they do have to play Columbus, which is yay. They do have to play the Islanders. They got the Islanders, the Rangers, the Penguins is going to be a hell of a game, tough game. New Jersey is going to be a tough game, but then they got
They
Philadelphia, they
are.
got Washington, they have Carolina, they have Colorado, they have 6 of the 9 games are very winnable for this team. They could very easily go 6-3 in the next week here.
Well, and they're also catching the Islanders while they had coming off a rough week. So, that's a team where, will they respond with a bounce back week in week 4? Will they be pissed off and come back fire and trying to get things back to where they believe they should be, where they were sitting at the top of the division ahead of both Columbus and Pittsburgh? Or will they continue to falter? You never know what's going to happen. And catching a team coming off a week like that can be either a really good thing or a really bad thing. But they've got it within themselves to make it a good thing that they're facing a team that's coming off a struggling week that maybe doesn't have the confidence it had going into this past week. So, we'll see what Calgary's able to do. I wish Goose was on here to talk about it so we could find out a little bit about how the inside of that locker room is. I know that they were pumped up about that Chicago win, and it seems like they're playing better as a whole. Still not getting the results on the ice, only having the 6 wins on the season. But I'd really be interested to hear what it sounds like in there, and if Perk's going to start making any moves on this team or not. It's interesting to me that he's made very few moves at all this season compared to most of the other teams. And it doesn't mean you have to make moves, but it's just interesting that they struggled. And, I think they've made 2 trades in the last 3 weeks. So, they
Well,
did bring in Goose, which is a great move, and he's helped them tremendously.
yeah, what I'm wondering is where did Downey go? Did Downey quit?
No, he's on there.
He is. I didn't
Nana
see him.
Downey. Yeah, it's Nana Downey.
Oh, he changed his name. Okay.
Yeah, he wants to. For the record, he does want to switch back, but for whatever reason, he can't right now.
I
But
believe you have to wait. There's a
he
time.
said 3 months or something.
Yeah, it's like 3 to 6 months or something like that.
I've seen other people change their names multiple times in a week. I don't know.
Well, it says in their profile that they have, but who knows if they actually change their names or if it's just, I don't know. It shows up 3 or 4 different times when it was really only
Yep.
done once. So,
Right. Well, Calgary, San Jose. It's tough right now, but get yourselves up and try and have a solid week this week. It can be done.
yep.
Moving on to the LA Kings. The Kings have 28 points. They're sitting in 5th place in the division. They are 5 points behind the Coyotes, who are sitting in a wild card spot. And then, of course, everybody's chasing down the Canucks, Oilers, and, of course, the Ducks, who have just been on an outstanding run through the first 3 weeks. But JLM 14-10 and these LA Kings, very competitive team, tough team to play against. They've played 15 one-goal games. They're 6-7-2. Very easily, obviously, could have had a few wins in those 7 one-goal losses. But this team has made a couple moves. They've gotten better. They've added some pieces to their roster. What do you think about the Kings, Mike?
Well, I think they have a lot of offense. Mesmerize is a great winger. Triggered Kev was an amazing draft pick for them. They went out and they spent the big bucks on Danny Briere, who's been outstanding for them. You knew that was coming. I mean, you spend over $10 million on a player, and he should be in the bright red on the roster. And if he's not, then you made a mistake there. But Danny Briere comes as advertised. He's ripping it up this season. He's really put together a good season for them and playing with Illy Philly. I think they've found a nice little bit of chemistry there between them, and they've really been playing well. their defensive core. Han Solo's been a pleasant surprise to me. He's been a steady player. He's doing a good job for them. He's been a very pleasant surprise. And then Matt Disney in the net, he's been a great goaltender for him this season. So I think they're just a couple of little things away, from getting right back into this thing. They're not out of it by even.
No, it's a
They're
fight.
nowhere close. I mean, they're right up our whoop. But it's going to be a battle until the end of the season with this team. As like I said, I love their forwards. CF Fairman, it looks like he's struggling a little bit in the NHL, but
You still call him CF Fairman?
yeah, I know. Fairman, Chris. He looks like he's struggling a little bit, but you know what? It's a little bit of a change. You got to change your game a little bit, and he'll do that. He's a good player. He's also a friend, so I have a lot of faith in Fairman to get his game together and start keeping it simple. And JLM's done a great job. He's moved over to wing this season. I think they need to make a couple of more moves just to kind of solidify some of their weaker spots at forward. But all in all, they're doing a good job. They're right there in the standings. Coming up in this week here, they are playing the Metro Division as well. So they have some favorable matchups coming up this week. But they do have to start the week off with a team like Columbus, which isn't going to be a very good, it could or could not be a good boost. If they take out Columbus, look out. They could go out and rip off 8-9 wins this week. You never know. But they do have to face Columbus this week. They do have to play Pittsburgh. But there are some favorable matchups in there as well. So I'd look for them to go maybe 6-3, maybe even 7-2 this week.
Yeah, and the Kings, they played against the Ducks this past week and lost 2-1 in that game. Almost taking down the division and league's top team. Tested game, but they've got they also lost 1-0 to the Vancouver Canucks. They lost 3-2 to the Coyotes, or 4-3 they beat the Oilers 4-3.
Lots
of one-goal games on the interdivision, and they handed it to the Jets. They beat them 7-1. So this team has the firepower to do it. And their first-round draft pick, Triggered Kev, has been outstanding playing across from Briere with Illy Philly in the center. Kev has 25 points on the season. He has 11 goals and 14 assists. And, Briere's got 27 with 13 goals and 14 assists. And then, of course, Illy Philly's got 24 points. He's got 8 goals and 16 assists, setting both of those guys up for goals. So their top line is a line that can compete and beat anybody in this league. We'll see how they're able to line up their other two lines that they roll through and continue to compete. I'm sure they're probably going to make a move or two here or there. Of course, they got Ghost, New Jersey exit 13, who's got 20 points. He's got 8 goals, 12 assists. Fairman, even though he's struggling, he has 17 points. They've got guys who can put the biscuit in the basket on this team, and I expect this team to be fighting for a playoff spot all the way down to the end. This team will not go away. JLM does a very good job of getting his guys ready to play, and I expect them to be a factor all season. You got anything else on the Kings, Mike?
No, I think definitely, like you said, I just echo what we said earlier. They're going to be in it till the end. So, LA is going to be there. They're not the LA of last season. And speaking of teams that aren't the team of last season, we're going to move up to the Arizona Coyotes.
To the as Schroyer likes to call us for whatever reason. We haven't earned it yet, but I do like the name because it sounds kind of funny. The Aragona Coyotes. And I only say it because every time Schroyer says it, it makes me laugh. So, but yes, you're right. We are not sitting where this organization was sitting the first 2 seasons. Still a lot of work to be done. We're in a very tough division. The Kings are right up our ass. We do everything we can to try and catch Vancouver and Edmonton and It's hard to gain a single point on those teams. They're always up there winning games. We played a couple of tight games, lost in overtime to both of those teams this week. 4-3 to the Canucks in overtime, and then 8-7 Thursday night against Edmonton in overtime. But the Coyotes, one thing I'll say about our team that I, I never would have predicted this, but we're sitting at second place in the league with goals for. We scored 110 goals for. Only the Dallas Stars at 115 have scored more. We've struggled a little bit keeping the puck out of the net. We've given up 92 goals. But we've been pretty competitive, and there's a lot of guys on this team that I've really liked how they've performed this season.
For sure. And I would say out of those guys, the standout performer on the team this year has got to be JC Penn's 22. He's basically come in and put on a scoring show this season. He's currently leading the league in goals. That was definitely not expected. People weren't expecting JC Penn's to come out and be leading the league in goals right out of the gates. He's been a pleasant surprise. He's got a great offensive touch. And then there was some trouble at the beginning of the season where we did lose a defender right out of the gates, which really hurt. But we've had to make do with that, adding some players and a good friend of ours and Gnarly Barley Boys. We added him just recently, and he went 3-0 on the week. Our AGM B37 Will is a solid, steady defender, very smart player. And then of course there's Schroy. Schroyer's just, to my surprise, we had known each other in season 1 because we were obviously the management group for Hershey and he was on Washington. So we had played a few games together. We didn't know each other. You know what I mean? So, Schroyer coming in this season has been a very pleasant surprise. He's come in, he's embraced the team. He's been nothing but cool to everybody. And, I hope he's enjoying his time with the Coyotes. Another pleasant surprise on the team this season has been Daniel Epps. He's a guy, he is the lone holdover from season 2 and season 1 Arizona Coyotes. He is the only Coyote left on the roster from previous seasons, and Daniel Epps has been a very pleasant surprise this season as well.
He has, and just to listen to him talk about attitude-wise, the difference in morale in this team versus last year, it's nice to know that he was able to mold into that so well because the environment was tough when you lose as many games as they did. I believe Arizona won 13 games that last season, and we've won 15 this season through 3 weeks already. And you can really see it in his attitude, how excited he was for this team to change like it had. And honestly, I'm glad to have him back here. He's been an outstanding player. He had a great week this week, going 3-0. And then we've got guys like our 49th draft pick, Danny Kaye, who has been outstanding. Something happened early in the season. We had to ask him to play center, and he's moved over there and done it seamlessly. He's been a very, very solid center for us this season. Arizona, we've been competing. Of course, like you said, Penn's leading the league in goals right now. But everything that's happened, we're still sitting 4th place in this division behind 3 outstanding teams in this league, and it's going to be a battle to try and catch those teams for sure. And just to quickly mention, NHL Twister and T-Bot and Net have done a really good job for us. We've given up goals, a high number of goals, but there's been some defensive breakdowns. A lot of breakaways were given up early in the season that contributed to that. But I think that they are 2 underrated goalies and have played extremely well for us in a lot of cases.
Well, coming up in week 4, the Coyotes are playing the Metropolitan Division, which includes teams like the New Jersey Devils, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the New York Islanders, and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then finishing the week off with the Winnipeg Jets. So it's going to be a tough week again for Arizona. We'll see if they can keeping steady like they have been. They've been kind of a little bit of a surprise here so far, I think, to everybody, myself included. So we'll see if they can continue to stay on the winning path and continue to climb through the standings here. I'm not going to make any bold predictions whether or not they will or will not make the playoffs. We'll see.
We're going to fight.
So We'll see where Arizona ends up at the end of the season, whether it's in the playoffs or just on the outside looking in. We shall see. That definitely is left to be determined. So, moving on to the next team here, we have the Vancouver Canucks.
And one last stat on the Coyotes, as I've mentioned everybody else, is the Coyotes are 6-1-3 in 1-goal games. Moving on to the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver's sitting at third place in the Western Pacific. They're there with 36 points. They and the Oilers have both scored 105 goals for, almost dead even for them in goal differential, which is interesting. But the Canucks have 105 goals for. They have 80 goals against. They are 8-2 in 1-goal games, and Cummins 7 for the owner of this team has an outstanding team here. I know they just called up their AHL AGM Geno Snipe to the roster. He's played outstanding for them this season. We're going to go through this roster here in just a second, talking about some of these guys, and honestly, it's hard to find, if there is a weak spot on this roster. This is a very good team, and they are extremely tough to play against every single game.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, this is a team that's 8-2 in 1-goal games, so they've played 10 1-goal games. So they're right there. They've gotten by the skin of their pants or the skin of their ass here in some of these games. But Cummins has got a solid team over there. They're going to come to play. They move the puck extremely quickly. That's the one thing that I saw when we watched the Canucks game, because our guys stream every game and we watch every game. The thing that stuck out to me about Vancouver is how quickly they move the puck. It was bang, 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 bang. They were one-touching it. They were moving it quick. They were getting up and down the ice with quick passes, short passes. They would pass off to one person and then they drop it right back to whoever just passed it. They were moving the puck really well. And that's the way this entire team plays. With draft picks like Mixter 77, Nick K12 has been a pleasant surprise for them over there. This is a solid team from top to bottom, and where they're sitting currently in a very tight Western Conference definitely is proof of that.
Yeah, for sure. They've got their GM Marash, who's got 37 points on the season. He's got 25 goals and 25 goals and 12 assists. He's a plus 13. Phenomenal one, a center that they won in bidding. He's got 26 points, 14 goals, 12 assists. They've got a lot of guys on this team that can score points. They've got R. Watson 19's got 28 points, and Crosby's in net for them. Crosby X87. Tough, like we said, tough to find. They've got Mike Teasy in net as well. Tough to find a hole on this roster, which means every time you're playing them, sometimes you look at teams and you wonder, are they playing their first line tonight? Vancouver, I can honestly say, is one of those teams that I don't even look to see what lineup they're playing against us, because I know every single lineup they put out is going to be a very good competitive lineup, and that speaks very highly of the core group of guys in the 17-man roster that Cummins and Marash have put together.
Without a doubt. And they've got, every single player except for 3 on their team are in double digits for points, defenders included. And one of those 3 is a guy that they just made a move to pick up. So the other 2 guys that have been here all season are sitting right at 8 points each, and they're defenders. So, this team has widespread scoring. They're good from top to bottom. They're going to be a damn tough team come playoff time because they are good from top to bottom. It's not like they have one amazing line and, 2 crap lines. This is a team from top to bottom. Cummins and Marash have done a great job over there. They're going to be competing until the end. They were in the Western Conference Finals last year. We'll see if they can make it to the Cup Finals this year. They're definitely going to be on the radar as a team that could possibly come out of the West. So look for big things out of Vancouver as they continue their run here. Currently sitting in 3rd place in that division, but in that division, they're trailing 2 outstanding teams in Anaheim and Edmonton, and they're only 3 points behind Edmonton and an extremely hot Anaheim Ducks team.
Well, they are, and the last thing I'll say about the Vancouver Canucks record is that the reason that Edmonton is ahead of them in the standings isn't because they have more wins than them. Them and Edmonton have the same amount of wins at excuse me, at 18. But Vancouver doesn't have an overtime loss this season. Edmonton has gained 3 points, gained three loser points in three overtime games. So they're both sitting at 18 wins, but Vancouver's got 9 regulation losses, and Edmonton has 6 regulation losses with 3 OT losses, and those are 3 very big points in this division. We'll see how this plays out going down the stretch, but they are right there. And sitting only 4 wins behind the Anaheim Ducks. But, I guess let's move on to the Edmonton Oilers, another extremely tough team, sitting, like I said, at 18-6-3. They've got, just like Vancouver, 105 goals for, and 79 goals against, where, like I said, Vancouver has 80. So only one goal less goals against. They're almost identical goals for and against, these two teams. Don't flip me off. And they are 8-2-3 in 1 goal games this season. Edmonton is another one. We played them on Thursday night, lost in overtime 8-7. It was a damn football game.
Yeah.
And they can put the biscuit in the basket. They score. This team is a high paced team. They are very good with the stretch pass. B Bunny, doesn't typically miss the net when he gets in one on one with a defender and the goalie. He's very good at making sure the puck hits the back of the net. And this team. It's so hard to pick. If you put a gun to my head right now and told me to pick which team was going to win this division, it'd be really easy for a lot of people to say the Anaheim Ducks. But quite honestly, any one of these three teams could do it by the end of the season. It's going to be so tight, and these teams are so talented, and Edmonton is not an exception to that. They're a great team. They've got a lot of pieces, and they lost several players on their really, really solid. I believe they won the President's Trophy last season. They lost several players on their team to management, including a guy this season, Nuke Freeman, who's now the owner of the Washington Capitals. But Rahanic is the owner of the Red Wings. They've lost a couple other guys to management across the league, ownership, GM, that they've been able to ice a team that is still sitting second place in the Western Pacific Division, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, it's all about building that core, and Edmonton has the core. They have B Bunny. They've now added Matt the Cool Cat. They have LaPlante, who's an outstanding center in this league. They have Oso. They have M.A. Scottless. They have Bad Play BJ. They have Knees, and the list goes on and on and on. This is an offensive team. They put up goals in bunches.
Don't forget Matt the Cool Cat.
I already said him. He was the second guy I mentioned because he is
9-0.
He is a guy who is coming into the league. This is his first season in the NHL on the Xbox on the PlayStation side, and he has come in and been as advertised. He's got 14 goals, 17 assists. He's a plus 19 on the year, and he is still undefeated along with Bad Play BJ, the two guys on their team that have not taken a loss yet this season. They're extremely skilled offensively. They have a lot of guys. They have, 4 guys right at the top there who are, within 3 points of 30 points on the season. So, they have almost 30-point guys already in week 3. So, they're going to have some of the higher scoring guys in the league come the end of the season, and everybody's got almost equal goals to assists. So that tells you that they move the puck, they play as a team, and they score as a team. So Edmonton is going to be one of those teams. It's going to be extremely tough to beat. Like you said, I mean, we had a game against them this week. It was 8-7. I mean, basically the name of the game is when you play Edmonton, you just got to outscore them. And hope to stop a few and maybe not have them score just as many as you. But they put up goals in bunches. Yeah, they put up goals in bunches. They're also playing the Metropolitan Division in week 4. So look for them to be continuing to gain points this season. I would very much like to enjoy watching that Pittsburgh Penguins versus Edmonton Oilers game. I think that one's going to be outstanding. I think both teams play exactly the same way. They're sitting on almost exactly the same spot. in their divisions respectively, and that's going to be an offensive battle right there between those two teams. And Edmonton's going to be there when all the smoke settles. They're definitely making the playoffs this season. It's just how far are they going to go this season? They definitely won the President's Trophy last year. So we'll see if they can do it again this year. They're sitting a little bit behind, but this is one of those teams that isn't going to go through a lull. They're just going to continue to pick up points on a nightly basis and continue to chug along as the season goes on.
For sure. And they've also got, like you said, guy, right winger, Lord Finesse, who might be on one of the best contracts in the league at only $1.5 million. He's an outstanding player. They've been able to hang on to him the last few seasons, keeping him, from going into bidding, and his price will definitely go up if he ever does hit bidding. Um, their lineup up and down, top to bottom, is outstanding. And then, of course, you got, Penguins 2013 and net, who's played very solid for them. He's doing what he needs to do, and he's got, let me flip right back to it. He's got 11-5 and 2 record this season, and with only 5 losses through 3 weeks. That's outstanding as a goalie, especially in the NHL. And you're right. This is a team that you got to outscore them to win, and good luck doing that, because they can score all the way up and down their lineup. And that's the same for this team that we're going to move on to next, the Anaheim Ducks, who they score goals too, but their number one goalie, Schneider, hasn't lost a game through 3 weeks. He's 16-0 on the season, and that pretty much speaks for itself. Solid team in front of him, but the law of averages would say he would have accidentally lost a game here or there at some point. So for him to be 6-0, 5-0, and 5-0 in the first 3 weeks, that's an outstanding job by him. And this Anaheim Ducks team, they only have 4 losses as a team and 1 overtime loss on the season. And they have a league-leading 12-1-1 record in 1-goal games. So they have played 14 one-goal games, and they've got 1 loss and 1 overtime loss and 12 wins in those games. That is an incredible stat. This team does not like to lose. They've only got 91 goals for, which is good for 4th in the division. But they've only given up 53 goals against through 27 games. In an EA Sports NHL game, for this team to play 27 games and give up 2 goals a game or less is outstanding.
Well, it sure is, and they've got 6 players on this team who still have yet to lose a single game on the season. One of them being a goaltender who is 16-0. That just blows my mind right there. That Schneider's having himself a hell of a season, but also the guys in front of him are playing out of this world. Their defense is second to none in the league. They're keeping teams off the board, and when you can keep other teams from scoring, you're going to win games. I mean, their record is almost exactly the same at home as it is away. They're 11-2 at home, and they're 11-2-1 on the road. So they're getting it done from top to bottom. Everybody on that team is performing the way that Polska wants them to. They're really hitting on all cylinders right now. They kind of stumbled a little bit this week, I believe, comparatively speaking to the previous 2 weeks. But I mean, stumbling for this team is still picking up 8 wins in a week. So, this team's solid from top to bottom. They stumbled and lost 3 in a row this week, but who cares when you had won the previous 15 games out of it.
A lot of green on their schedule.
Oh my God, this team is on fire. They're playing extremely well. They lost 3 at the beginning of the week, but then they followed it right up with 5 in a row. So, a lot of their games, you don't see them blowing teams out. You see them close games. They're low scoring games. They've blown a couple of teams out here and there, but they're an extremely solid team, top to bottom. Polska's done a great job over there. And this is another one of those teams where they have 10 guys in double digit points. That's there's only one guy on their team that's sitting in the negative. And that's a guy that hasn't been on the team all season. He was a late pickup in week 2, I believe. So there's one guy that's sitting in the negative and plus minus on this entire team. They're just getting it done. Their leading goal scorer only has 14 goals. But on a team that's 22-4-1, if their leading goal scorer only has 14 goals, that tells me that everybody on this team is doing their job. So that's a hell of a job by Anaheim and Polska and Karmstrong. And, they're crushing it. And, we'll see if they can keep this pace up. It's going to be tough to keep this pace up because, for Christ's sake, they're 22-4-1 through 3 weeks of the season. So I wouldn't expect them to keep it up, but hey, you never know. They could, and if they do, they're definitely going to walk their way right into a President's Trophy by the end of season 3.
Yeah. I will say though, just to show that any team can beat any team, last Sunday they beat Vancouver 4-3 to start the week, and then lost 2-0 to the San Jose Sharks, who are sitting at the bottom of the league right now. That shows you that on any given night, any team can lose. And I think what's interesting is that 2 of their 4 losses are shutouts. They lost 3-0 to the Bruins to start week 2, and then to start week 3, they lost 2-0 to the Sharks. So
It's all good. I'm just gonna go grab something to drink. That's
oh,
all I was telling you.
I thought you were waving at me because you wanted to say
Yeah.
something.
No.
But then, losing to the Sharks, they came back on Monday night. They played against the Chicago Blackhawks and the Dallas Stars. They lost to both of those teams, both of who are hot themselves. Chicago they lost to 3-2, and Dallas they lost 4-3. So there's 1-goal games right there. There's their overtime loss and their regulation loss. The only 2 of which that they have in 1-goal games. They've won the rest of their 1-goal games on the season. So, they play teams close. Being 12-1-1, they very easily could have lost, 5, 6, 4, 3, any number, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those games playing against these teams, but they're finding a way to get it done right now. And if they can keep that up, I watched this team. We lost to them 3-1 this week. They're a relentless team. They're not the they're not the team that's going to come out and necessarily put 10 goals on you. But with their goaltending and their defensive core, the way that they do move the puck on offense, this team can beat you any way on any given night. And so far to this point, that's exactly what they've done in all but 5 games this season. So I really can't say enough about the Ducks. I know I've been talking to Carm this week. He wants to get on the show. He's interested. I was going to try and get you on this week, man. Sorry, I just had some personal issues go on where I'm kind of at home by myself right now. The wife had to leave town and I've got the dog, so I didn't have as much time to put into doing other kind of prep work this week. But a lot of you guys that have responded to me will want to get you on the show and talk to you and see what you're seeing, get your perspective in from your side of the league and what you're seeing and how things are going, and how you feel about your team and their chances. But Carm has been in contact with me the most so far, and I'm sorry I couldn't get you on tonight, but I will get you on the show this season for sure. I expect as we move through next week, we're going to cover the last Eastern Conference division, which will be the Eastern Atlantic Division. Currently, the Bruins sit at the top of that. But I plan on, at least the way it's going, I plan on talking about the Ducks, the Oilers, the Canucks, those teams the rest of the season. Hopefully the Coyotes. We'll see how it goes. But the Kings aren't going to go away. The Flames are starting to make some noise. We'll see if San Jose can do anything. But this division is an extremely tough division. I don't think in all honesty, I don't think we could be part of a tougher division top to bottom in this league. And especially from these top three teams that they give it to you every single game. You do not get free wins against these teams, and that's the reason why they're sitting at the top, especially the Ducks. And I plan on continuing to talk about them as we move forward throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the toughest trio of teams in a division. I'd definitely say Chicago, Dallas, Winnipeg. But then again, I think both Edmonton and Vancouver are just a little bit better than Winnipeg. So it's definitely tough. Who would have thought it at the beginning of the season that this Western Pacific would have looked like a semi-tough division? We'll see how it goes. We'll see if Arizona can hang on. We'll see if LA can move up. We'll see if Calgary and San Jose can get their seasons turned around and, start picking up some W's along the way. But as it stands right now, the Anaheim Ducks reign supreme in the Western Pacific.
Yes, they do. And nice job, boys, doing it through 3 weeks, only losing 4 games, 1 in overtime. So 22-4-1. Keep that up and, look forward to doing our best to try and hand you some losses at some point, I hope.
I ain't gonna make any guarantees on that.
No, I'm not putting a guarantee. I said I hope.
I know.
So moving on, let's move on to this week's power rankings. We're short goose, so I'm going to take over goalies and defense, so you're going to hear my voice, unfortunately, for the next couple minutes. But this week on goaltender, the from the Rangers, we have Pages Rad bringing it in at number 10. He was 4-1 this week for the Rangers, who had a little bit of a bounce back week. They didn't struggle quite as bad this week as they had been doing, and Page was a big part of that. The Red Wings have Turd Burglar at 4-1. Matt 40-29 for the Boston Bruins went 3-0 this week, as well as Dirty Deeds for the Edmonton Oilers. Those bottom three, Matt, Turd Burglar, and Page, they were the only goalies on this list to have a less than 80 save percentage. But Dirty Deeds for the Oilers had an 80 exactly save percentage at 3-0. Matt Bielski got called up for the Sharks. He went 1-1-1, but he had 45 saves. He had a .54 goals against average and an 80.4 save percentage. I'm not sure if the goals against is actually correct or not, but it's on the list, so we'll go with it for now. And for the second straight week, we have Bernatchez from the Boston Bruins up here on this list. He went 3-0, 1.78 goals against. This week we had Mooner, 2014 from the Avs, who had struggled the first couple of weeks, winning only 1 game in the first 2 weeks of the season. He went 3-1 this week in a bounce back week, having 49 saves in those 4 games, a 1.75 goals against, and an 87.5 save percentage. Good bounce back week for him, and in Colorado, bounce back week for their team. Bringing in the week's third star for LG was King Cons. He was 5-0 with 45 saves, 1.38 goals against, an 84.9 save percentage. This guy has so far this season proven his value at that $4.5 million contract he was won on in bidding. He has played outstanding. He has been an extremely good goalie on a really good team that is sitting at the top of their division in the Eastern Conference right now. And can't say enough good things about King Cons. And then they're in league second star. There he is again, the familiar face, Schneider, 24, going undefeated for the 3rd straight week. This guy is freaking outstanding. He's 16-0 on the season, 5-0 on the week, 51 saves. He did have another shutout this week, 1.2 goals against average and an 89.5 save percentage. We've said it all. I can say it again, but Schneider has had an outstanding season, and he's back at it again. Jade Dragoon was given the league's first star on goalies this week. He went 3-0 with the Avalanche. He had 37 saves, and it says he has a .32 goals against average and a 97.4 save percentage with 2 shutouts. Um,
That's an outstanding
that's out.
job. 2 shutouts
That's
in a week.
that's incredible. That's kind of like what you saw out of Zefster in week 1 for the Lightning, having games like that, 2 shutouts, and you know, doing a double take, looking at that goals against and save percentage. But 3 games, 2 shutouts, I guarantee that's right on the money. So for me this week, um, I would give it to Jade Dragoon as my first star, but I'm not going to because he did only play 3 games. I I'm going to go ahead and give it to King Cons. 5-0 on the week, 1.38 goals against, 84.9 save percentage. So far, Schneider is the #1 star on the season, but this week I'm going to give it to Cons. Going 5-0 this week, Cons had an outstanding week, and he's played really well. Good job to him. But Schneider, I'm not shunning you on this one, just trying to spread it around. But the way
Gotta
you're going, you're
spread the love.
you're you're
Spread it.
you deserve it as well. I maybe even split it on them this week, honestly. But Cons
Right.
with my #1 star goalie this week. Moving on to defense. You know, several new names on here this week. B37 Will from the Coyotes went 3-0 this week with 3 points. He was a +4. Pete Sire from the Pittsburgh Penguins and Killing Beast 88 from the Penguins. 5 points, 3 points, +4, +9. Um, Played extremely well. Stevie 66, the #4 overall draft pick of the Chicago Blackhawks, made it on to the defense who's hot list this week. Uh, you know, is at KG 3-0, 3-0 for the Anaheim Ducks. Jack of Hearts for the Canucks. Biggie Biggs for the Boston Bruins on here again. I think that's his second week this season. He had 4 points, 1 goal. He was a +10. Um, playing for a streaking Boston team that looks like they finally hit their stride this week and have moved their way up and overtaken the Lightning for the division lead. Dubs 47, good friend of the show. Um, you know, a friend of the shout box, I guess you would say as well. the Dub's going to give you the shout out, the goatist, as you like to say. 3-0 on the week with 5 points. He was a +9, doing a good job down there in Florida. Doing what he needs to do. Fontanet from the Penguins. A lot of Penguins, a lot of Blackhawks, and a lot of Canucks on this list this week. He was 3-0 with 4 points, +9. Nick K12 from the Vancouver Canucks, 2-0, 5 points, +8. iQuantum Physics, he played 4 games this week. Yeah, I know they did. Played 4 games this week, had 3 points, +8. And, there's Chicago's #2 overall draft pick, PTP, who was 3-0 with 5 points, a +8 on the week, and he scored 3 goals as a defenseman. Any week as a defenseman that you score multiple goals, you've had a really good week, most likely. Logie Cool for the Florida Panthers went 3-0 with 8 points. He had 2 goals, was a +4. And then your league's 3 stars for the week on defense were Offspring Element at 3-0 with 3 points, 2 goals, +5 for the Blues. And his defensive partner, ZD Ball, got the league's first star of the week, 3-0 with 4 points, 2 goals, and a +5. And then the league's second star, he's going to be my first star on the week for defenseman, is Saka Playa 11 for the Boston Bruins. He went 3-0. He had 7 points. He had 2 goals, and he was a +10. One of only 2 defensemen that were a +10, and the other one is his defensive partner, Biggie Biggs. But putting up the 7 points with the 2 goals, 2.3 points a game as a defenseman. Outstanding job by him. He had a great week. And he is my first star of the week. And then, of course, honorable mention goes to Pro Series Frank, who was 2-0 this week with 7 points. He had 3 goals and was a +8. Like I said, though, Saka Player 11 gets my first star of the week in goaltending. And we will move it over to Miranda Conda, who will give you our forwards.
Well, this week and forward, we do have some new faces, and one of those new faces that I'd like to point out, and you mentioned him just a little while ago, is Geno Snipe, who has been called up to the Vancouver Canucks. He came out, he played in 2 games this week, and he dominated in both of those games, picking up 10 points, 4 goals, 6 assists. He was a +8 in those 2 games, averaging in at 5 points per game. So that's a great job by Geno. He's a good kid. He's a good friend of ours. We play a lot of games together. And it's good to see him finally getting his due up in the NHL where he belongs, as he is he's a very solid player. Matt the Cool Cat, another guy we had mentioned, is right there, only playing 2 games this week. A lot of guys on the list this week that only played 2 games, which is a little bizarre if you ask me. But there's a lot of guys. I mean, more than half the list played only 2 games this year for forwards, or this week for forwards.
I don't think I've ever seen that medal, the third medal down at the eighth
The eighth
position.
position. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But of course, you do got to play your maximum number of games to qualify for that medal.
Yep.
Chase Nasty in his move over to New Jersey was 2-0 this week with 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists. Class act. He only played 2 games as well. B Bunny, 15 points and 2-0-1 on the week. That's a great job. He's another one of those massive scoring threats that the
Scored half of
Edmonton
those in the
Oilers
game
have.
against us.
Sure did. Scoots makes it on this list, only playing 2 games for the week, with 9 points, 5 goals, 4 assists, and a +7. Novak for Prez is on here. Ja Gerard is on here. Jortu Good, aka Kebukwai K for the Philadelphia Flyers, makes the list this week. But then up towards the top, you got your regulars. You have CC Piper, who was 2-0 on the week, picking up 12 points, 6 goals, 6 assists. We're splitting it right down the middle there. Of course, you got Big Boy QC. He only played 2 games as well. Hriz for the Florida Panthers. He was 3-0 on the week, picking up 14 points, splitting it right down the middle, 7 goals, 7 assists, was a +10 on the week. That's a great job. Florida seems to have gotten a nice week under their belt here, and we'll see if they can't continue to make the push here and climb up through the standings. Then you got Kadri, who's an outstanding player. He was one of my teammates in IHL as well. It was fun watching him play. He's a really good guy, great player. He was 3-0 on the week, picking up 17 points. And, number one on the list currently, he only played 2 games and had 13 points, coming in with 5 goals and 8 assists for a +11 on the week. That's 6.5 points per game for Kraz 18.
Who is that guy?
Yeah, he is the artist formerly known as Jay Claus's wing line mate. So, no, Kraz is an outstanding player. If he would have played his 3rd game, I'm confident he probably would have received the first star of the week from LG and myself as well. But my first star of the week this week has definitely got to go to Kadri from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He came in with 17 points, 7 goals, 10 assists, +8 on the week, playing center and left wing. So that's my number one star for forwards, is Kadri from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and second straight week that the Toronto Maple Leafs are getting the first star on forward. Bill got it last week, having I think a 19-point week. They're getting scoring out of different guys. Toronto is, and they've made a run to get themselves back into contention in that division with guys like this having weeks like that.
Yeah, I mean, they made a run last week, but this week it seems like they've slipped right back into their old habits. They kind of dropped right out again this week. And if
Look how tight that division is, though.
Yeah, for sure, they've got to find themselves a little bit of consistency here. And I'm sure they will. It's just they've got to find some consistency because they have some outstanding talent on that team. And Kadri and Bill, they have a lot of really good players that they only picked up 3 wins this week, but they are definitely still right in the thick of it because of the division they play in and how tightly knit that division is. So we'll see where Toronto goes, but they do have some outstanding scorers over there.
Yeah, they do, but their biggest problem is they're struggling in net right now. I mean, they've scored. If my mouse will move here, 103 goals for this season, which is um, only 12 behind the division. I mean, sorry, the league lead in goals for, which is at 115. But they've given up 112 goals against. So defensively and in net, I know Buds is playing net. Um, they've got to figure something out because they've got some guys that are putting up some major points. Especially the last couple of weeks having guys like Bill and Tech 112 and now Kadri having big 17 and 19 point weeks. We'll see what they're able to do. That division is awfully tight, and even though they're sitting at the bottom of their division, they still have 21 points. And they're only 3 points back of the Canadians, five of the Sabres, another three from there, so eight behind the Red Wings, and then 10 behind the Panthers. So a good week by them, especially a big division week, which is why they fell back down. If they would have flip flopped that, they could easily be sitting where Florida is right now at fourth in division. So we'll see how that goes. Good job to all you guys that are 3 stars, King Cons, and then, Asterisk Schneider, who's going to continue to get a star every week as long as he continues to do that. But I'm spreading the love, and King Cons had an outstanding week. And then on the defensive side there, my number 1 star being Saka Playa 11 from Boston, and then Mike's first star on offense, Kadri from the Leafs. Great job to all you guys and all the guys that made it on to this week's Who's Hot list, having great weeks helping your teams win games. Another week where, the top 20 forwards on that list, not a single regulation loss between them. There were only three overtime losses on that entire list. Um, Same with defense. Defense was undefeated this week on that top 20 list. And, the goalies, all the goalies on this list, 3-0, 5-0, 5-0. Only one loss for most of these goalies on here at the time. So great job to all you guys. And, let's see who we have next week for sure. Moving on to our game of the week. Mine will be really short because I had the Islanders Penguins last week on Monday night, and the Penguins won that game by forfeit 1-0. So I didn't have a game to watch, unfortunately. Mike, did you at least get to watch yours?
Well, yeah, it was the Islanders and Devils, and this game was back and forth. They fought it out the entire time. It ended up, they played to a stalemate in the third period. So the Devils did end up coming out on top with a 5-4 victory over the Islanders in that game. Chiz Nasty picking up the first star, and of course Theos picking up the second star. Who would have thought those guys would be playing together when they were moved to that team in the same weekend? But Cole Crazy picking up the third star in that game. And it just looks like New Jersey dominated time on attack. They had they had over twice as much. It looks like they did have a disconnection, so they had to restart that game from the looks of it and all the pictures. But it was a tightly contested game, and New Jersey came out and they stuck it to the Islanders and picked up the W. And the Islanders seem to have slid a little bit this week. We'll see if they can put a run together in week 4 and claim their spot back atop the Metro Division.
For sure. Who I guess real quick, Goose had the Lightning versus the Bruins. I did not watch this game, but I did pull it up to go through it for him really quick, just because I know this was the game that he was going to be paying attention to for all you guys. So the Bruins beat the Lightning 6-3 in this game, and I'm just waiting for this to pop back up real quick. Your 3 stars from this game were Kush Demon QC, RV Clutch, and the star of the week on defense, Saka Player 11. Kush Demon had 5 points in this game, so did RV Clutch, both with 2 goals and 3 assists. It looks like it was a game with a ton of penalties. The Lightning took 7 penalties. Boston was able to score 3 goals on 7 power plays. Boston took 4 penalties themselves. Tampa scored 1 goal on 4 power plays there. Um, and face-offs 18-15. That was really even. Time on attack, though, Boston doubled up Tampa, going 918 to 405. Time on attack, doubled up their shots 18-9, and we've seen a lot of teams double up teams on time on attack but not take very many shots. But if you do what Boston did in this game and double up time on a possession and double up on shots, you're going to win most of those games, especially if Tampa takes 7 penalties like that. So looks like this game, a lot of this game was spent on the power play by both teams. But it was a game that looks like it wasn't. Sorry, it just blacked out there. Looks like it was close until the third period. It was 1-1 after one, and then it was 3-2 after the second period, and then Boston put up 3 goals in the third period, ended that game 6-3. So that was Goose's game of the week. We'll tell him to pick a game of the week for next week's show. We're going to move on from this. And Mike, what is the game that you're going to be watching for this week?
The game I'm going to be watching is the tops in the Western Central versus the tops in the Western Pacific. It is the lone Thursday night game for both teams, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks versus the Anaheim Ducks. It is the 1 versus the 2 seed in the Western Conference, and should be a great matchup between two powerhouse Western Conference teams.
Well, that's definitely going to be a fun game to watch. The game that I'm choosing is going to be on Monday at 10 o'clock. Will be the late game Monday. Going to be Vancouver Canucks versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Going to be an outstanding game to watch. This should be very interesting between two top teams, or each of these teams are sitting near the very top of each of their respective conferences. I really look forward to seeing what these two teams will do. And, on that note, we'll watch these games, get back to you guys next week. Ought to be a very interesting week here. A lot of movement this past week. We'll see how it goes. We'll see you guys next Saturday night. And, let's take care of each other here. You guys can have a little bit of fun talking to each other, talking smack and stuff, but don't get personal to people. Let's make sure that we're not being assholes.
Well, I'm not,
that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, it is going to be a good week 4. Let's see. We'll see who can continue keeping it going, and, who can continue to, we'll see if teams can pull themselves out of the holes that they're in. And, it'd be good to see some of these teams at the bottom to really start grinding it out and picking up some W's. And, we'll see. Week 4 in LG should be extremely interesting. And, it is what it is. Here we go, boys, coming into week 4 now. And, I guess with that, we will say adieu. And, we'll get back at it next week, boys. And, everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend here.
Stay classy, LG.